All right, now that we've completed the situation analysis, the question is, what's next? Well, of course, next is the SWOT, which is a summary of the situation analysis. It's not a replacement for the situation analysis. It is simply summarizing what we found out in the situation analysis. So the basic idea behind the situation analysis was to provide information to make better decisions about the opportunity analysis or the marketing plan or the solving a problem that we have in our marketing area. So the analysis really needs to be used as input into developing those. Otherwise, there was no reason to collect that data. In many cases, I see people collect situation analysis data and then completely ignore it. And of course, we don't want to do that. So the internal analysis starts with the strengths and weaknesses, right? So when we talk about the SWOT, it's strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. The strengths and weaknesses, of course, are on the internal side. That has to do with the organization, firm, company, whatever, and its ability to take advantage of opportunities as they come along. The external analysis, of course, deals with opportunities and threats. And so this has to do with threats and opportunities that exist because of the way the industry is moving or the industry is structured. It has to do with customers. It has to do with the competitive environment in which we're operating. And of course, and it also has to do with all of those macro issues that we had discussed. All right, so the strengths and weaknesses, of course, is an analysis of the assets, skills, and capabilities of the organization. And it comes from that internal analysis that we had done for this particular market opportunity analysis. The analysis should obviously focus on the assets, skills, and capabilities of the organization, not so much the individuals. In some cases, of course, the product is an individual. You know, it's Guy Fiero's restaurant. Well, then of course Guy Fiero is part of the strengths and weaknesses, and his reputation and his personality and his brand is all part of that. But in most cases, we're not so much interested in individuals as we are the organization's assets, skills, and capabilities. And it's based, of course, on the organization compared to the competitors. So we talk about strengths and weaknesses. It's not just the organization, it's the organization as we see it compared to alternatives or competitors. Of course, research shows that top managers in organizations tend to be way more optimistic and positive than outsiders looking at the situation. They also tend to focus more on personnel and financial attributes and less on operational issues such as facilities, product quality, production or service processes, distribution, fulfillment, etc. All right, and of course, so let's go back quickly then. The strengths are those important assets, skills, and capabilities for which the firm has an advantage over its competitors. That, of course, means things that the organization is good at, and they are better at those than the competition. The weaknesses, of course, are just the opposite. These are the important assets, skills, and capabilities for which the firm is at a disadvantage over its competitors. Most organizations are very quick to identify strengths, but they're not very interested and not very good at identifying their weaknesses. And in some cases, some of their weaknesses they would classify as strengths. And of course, that goes back to that whole notion of them being more optimistic than someone from the outside looking at this more realistically. Opportunities, of course, is an industry, customer, competitive, or macro trend or development that could lead to an opportunity in which the organization could successfully compete. So when we're talking about opportunities, we're trying to identify things that are going on in the industry, things that are going on with the customers, things that are going on in the competitive environment or the macro environment that could lead to opportunities that the organization could exploit from a marketing perspective. And of course, threats are, once again, the opposite. These are challenges posed by unfavorable trends or developments, either in the industry, customers, competitive environment, or the macro environment, um, that in absence of some sort of defensive marketing action could result in a disadvantage, and deterioration of sales, profits, and opportunities for the organization. All right, so the single biggest mistake in the SWOT analysis is thinking that the SWOT is somehow supposed to be a data collection thing where we come up with strategies. That's not what the SWOT is. The SWOT is simply a summary of the situation analysis. A summary of the situation analysis. And so we don't put strategic alternatives in the opportunities and threats section. I see it all the time. I see organizations doing this. I see consulting firms doing this, and of course, I often see teachers and students doing this in projects. And of course, this is not the way to proceed. And I'm going to give you an example a little bit later on to show you how that might work. So, once again, the SWOT is simply a way to summarize the situation. Strategies should be developed that maximize the strengths and weaknesses. But the SWOT doesn't develop the strategy. The SWOT just identifies opportunities and threats, strengths and weaknesses. Over time, organizations must address their weaknesses and, of course, rely on their strengths. All organizations need to understand what they're good at and use that to their competitive advantage. Strategies should be developed that seize opportunities and minimize threats. Once again, though, that's not the job of the SWOT. That is the way that we're going to summarize the data so that those opportunities and threats become obvious. So a typical example of analysis for strengths and weaknesses, and that is, of course, we assess strengths. We assess each area as a strength, neutral, or weakness, and then we evaluate it as important or not. Now, what I have here is an example of a little table that we sometimes use. I don't use this all the time in my consulting, but the idea behind this is fairly simple, right? So we go through things like the company's reputation. Is the company's reputation a strength, a weakness, or is it about the same as all the competitors? And how important is the company's reputation in terms of this particular activity, typically a market opportunity analysis or solving a problem or developing an annual marketing plan? The same thing could then be said for your market share, the product quality. And of course, everybody thinks their product quality is better than it actually is. But how important is that? Is it a strength? Is it a weakness? Or is it neutral? In terms of at least how customers would view this. How about the services? How about pricing? How about distribution effectiveness? How about promotional effectiveness and the promotional plan itself? What about sales force effectiveness? How about their unique selling proposition? Is our unique selling proposition a strength? Is it neutral, or is it a weakness compared to the competition? How important is the unique selling proposition? For most situations, of course, the unique selling proposition is very important, but there could be some situations where it is less important than perhaps some other things. Same thing could be said for innovation and styling. Could be things like geographic coverage, location, facilities, economies of scale. All potential issues involving the organization itself, therefore becoming strengths and weaknesses. Some more: your costs, your capacity, your quality and effectiveness of your workforce. Everybody thinks that their workforce is the best workforce of any of their competitors, but everybody can't be the best. How about the dedication of employees? How about technical skills of the workforce? How about your customer focus? How about your brand awareness? Once again, these are all areas under the strengths and weaknesses of the individual organization's strengths and weaknesses. Breadth and depth of product line leadership, ability to quickly adapt to changes in the competitive environment or the macro environment. Competitiveness, availability of capital, cash flow, all things that make a difference potentially for an organization. Now, I've given you here a huge long list, and of course, all of these won't matter in every situation, and so you would need to go in and look at your situation analysis, and in this and under the strengths and weaknesses, you need to be looking at your internal analysis and determining which of these are issues, which of these are areas that we want to consider given the activity at hand, typically a market opportunity analysis. And then, of course, we have the other side of this. The other side of this are opportunities and threats. Now, opportunities and threats deal with the industry, the customers, the competition, and the macro environment. So some of those things might be things like industry size, industry growth rates, the submarkets, industry trends, and industry issues. And each of those might be you might try to determine which of these are the most important factors. And so we have a scale of, like a 1 to 5 scale. How important are each of these? And then, do we consider the industry size to be an opportunity, neutral, or a threat? How about the industry growth rate? Is it an opportunity, neutral, or is it a threat? In some cases, we're operating in marketing industries that are shrinking. Well, of course, that then becomes more likely a threat than an opportunity. In other cases, we have a fast growing industry. Well, that's more likely to be an opportunity, especially if there's growth in certain submarkets rather than others. Same thing can be said, of course, for industry trends and issues. Next, we get on to the customers. How about the total size of the market? How many customers are there? Is that an opportunity? Is that neutral, or is that a threat? Is the number of customers shrinking or growing? That's important. What about our customer demographics? How important is that? And is that an opportunity, neutral, or a threat compared to the competitors? How about our customer segments and customer motives? How about those other buyer behaviors like search? In terms of how much time, money, and effort the individuals are willing to go through to evaluate alternatives, brand awareness, all those kinds of things that buyers find important. In terms of competitors, we're always interested in the number of competitors, the size of the competitors, the competitive rivalry in the business, resulting in either potentially more competition or less competition, depending on the rivalries. The competitive advantages of the people that we're going to have to compete with. What's their market share? And what do their competitive offers look like? Obviously, compared to ours, maybe they're making a competitive offer that's going to be hard for us to compete with. And that, I use an example of that in terms of the automobile business. Think about our good friends at Tesla, and think about the EV market for automobiles. They have a bunch of advantage by having moved down the learning curve, but they also maybe their competitive offers aren't quite as up to date as some of their other competitors might be. Then we talk about macro environmental issues, which includes demographic shifts, technological shifts, political and legal issues, economic climate, social and cultural trends, and at any particular point in time, the macro environment may be extremely important in determining the future opportunities and threats and for any individual organization. So in summary, I can't emphasize this enough. The SWOT is not a data finding activity. If you go to a class and the class says, and the person in the class says, we're going to do a SWOT, what they probably really mean is we're going to do a situation analysis. The SWOT is not the data finding activity. It is a data summary activity. The SWOT is designed to summarize your situation analysis. It is not the situation analysis. The SWOT can be done relatively quickly, and the situation analysis will definitely take some time and effort. It is just one of many ways to summarize the data, but it does include looking at all of the situation analysis and trying to determine what are those aspects of the situation analysis that will be the most crucial as we try to do a better job of understanding the market opportunity analysis.